Hey guys, I told you on Wednesday I would try and do little tech videos. So we're going to do a little one today on hammers, as far as metal work, shaping metal, and so on. But before I can teach you about shaping metal, I got to teach you what to use and how it's used. So you understand metal, I want to show you something simple first. It's just a strip of aluminum. It's a softer aluminum, so I can show you rather easily without beating your ears to death. But you can see that's straight. So I'm going to do a little obvious here because it's a large hammer, but you pound right down on a piece of metal. See how much that distorted that metal? It stretched it and it made it larger. So by beating that edge down, it moved the metal this way. Okay, I show you that for a specific reason. When you got a panel, body fender, quarter panel, whatever, that's been bent. Like I took a piece of metal here and bent it. So this one's bent in two directions. Got a nice crease in it. So essentially, that piece of metal right there at the crown has been stretched. So when you have stretched metal, you have to try and collapse that metal in order to get it flat. And I'm going to show you how we do that, but I want to talk a little bit about hammers first and dollies. For example, here's two hammers that pretty much look very much alike, almost the same, but they're very different. They have different jobs. This hammer, for example, is flat, the head. This one is domed. Okay, those have very different jobs as far as how you shape the metal, how the panel works, so on. So we also have dollies, which are very different shapes, arches and flats, and there's a lot of stuff that we make. We just use a flat piece of metal, a chunk of metal. But dollies come in all shapes and sizes, all different types of finishes. So when you're shaping a piece of metal, I'm going to clamp this in here to show you the basics of it. But you can see, I don't know, was that showing up on that camera? So you got a high side here and a high spot here. So when you want to shape a piece of metal, most people think that you take that flat dolly and you place it up underneath there and you hammer it till it's flat. It doesn't work that way. So what you want to do is you want to place that dolly on the side that's down, and you're going to actually hammer on the high side. Okay? So when you're hammering, you don't want to just pound the two together because you will essentially stretch the metal the way I showed you on that strip. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold the hammer on the higher side, or the lower side from the bottom, and then you're going to glancing blows this way because you don't want to squash it. You picture a stick of bubble gum. If you squeeze it, it goes fly. Metal is liquid; it moves. So when you hold the high side up, you work that panel. You're not under it where the hammer's being used. Now you see how flat that rapidly moved? Now you can continue working this for hours, I mean, the flatter you get it, the less plastic you're going to use to fill it. But the idea behind it is not to squeeze the aluminum or the metal in between the two. You're going to hold it up here and you're going to work this area. So you're not pounding these two together, which is what a lot of people think. So you're going to hold that low up. And the glancing blow, what that does is it's not pounding straight down. It allows your surface, even though your hammerhead is only an inch, it allows your surface area to be gigantic. So you're just going to work that out. Now, that's not too shabby. I mean, there's still a little, the other thing is learn to feel it with your hand, and you find those high spots and those low spots, and you work them out. But that has a lot to do with how your body finishes, how straight you get that panel. Now, a little more advanced, sometimes you get a panel that is bent so badly that the metal is stretched and it's huge. A small wrinkle like that, a little manipulating, a little hammering, and you're allowed to kind of shrink that metal back up. If you get one that's stretched really bad, you have to shrink that metal. Now, there are ways of doing that with a torch where you heat up a small spot and then cool it, and the molecules will pull itself in, and you can tighten it. You've heard the phrase oil canning, where a panel will in and out. That's because that metal is stretched. Now, a simple way to do that, and we make some of our dollies. This is just a dolly that I cross-hatched with a cutoff wheel. If you take that dolly up underneath your panel, and now this time you're going to put it right under the stretched area, and you're going to work into that. So as you're hitting, it's kind of pushing the metal down into those little grooves, and it will tighten it up. So there's simple ways to manipulate metal with the hammer. But understanding how metal moves and how it works is the key to successfully straightening a panel. So you just got to remember that metal will stretch, it will move the same way a piece of caulking or putty would move. I said, and you have to work that panel in that aspect, keeping that in mind. Don't pound the hell out of it. That's not your job to beat it. You're going to manipulate it. You're going to massage it back into place. I mean, this is a little over exaggeration, but it's the only way I can get my point across. How many times have you rode down the road and saw a guy pull up next to you with a quarter panel that was caved in, and it looks like he got on the inside of the trunk, beat the hell out of it, and it's all little bumps sticking out where they beat him out? We've all seen those. That's because somebody just pounded the shit out of it. That's not the way you do bodywork. It's called finesse. You just slowly work that panel until you get it flat. So I hope that helps you a little bit. It takes practice. I mean, take a piece of metal and put it in a vise. You bend it a few different ways, smack it with a hammer, and work it. Get your skill. Work your skill. But the point behind it is knowing what to use. This is a flat panel, so you're going to use a flat surfaced hammer. Let's say you got a little bevel, like say a dent side Ford. You're going to take that rounded panel, that rounded dolly, and you're going to take, or the rounded hammer, I'm sorry, and you're going to take a dolly that is rounded, so that when you're working it, you're shaping the metal. You want to find the dolly that best fits the shape of your metal, as well as your hammer. So each hammer has a purpose. And I mean, you can buy hammers of all different types, different shapes, different angles. We make a lot of hammers. Just take an old claw hammer. I use this one for shrinking. It's got grooves in it, and then I put just a little piece of threaded rod on the other end, welded it in there. Now you look at that and you go, "Oh, Phil, that's not going to hold. It's not going to hold the heat." And remember, you're not beating the hell out of this metal. You're just massaging it, so it will hold. But there's a lot of things that you can make just out of old scraps laying around. I mean, this is a couple of metal discs, an old broken breaker bar. That's not a hammer. What that is a dolly. If I can't get in someplace, I can use that dolly up underneath there and work it. So making your own tools is probably a pretty good thing in some cases. But hammers, there's a million of them. And as you can tell, I have quite the hammer fetish. That one's for kind of getting up into areas. So there's a million different shapes, but that doesn't limit you to not making some of your own, because you never know what you're going to get. Now, I know I've had people ask me about like the cheapo Harbor Freight sets. Okay, this is a cast hammer, and you see people that break them, and they'll get online and they'll go, "Oh, these things are junk. These are junk." This is a body hammer. This wasn't designed to pound something to oblivion. It is cast, but again, you're just working that area gently. This is sheet metal. It's not steel. It's not quarter-inch thick frame rail. It's just sheet metal. So just a little gentle massage. Those hammers work. They're not the greatest of quality, but the quality problem with these is more of balance, how the hammer feels in your hand. So, sometimes I'll change hammer handles, for example. This one's long, it's big, gives me a lot more leverage, and I got a lot more control over it because it's longer. So the more you get into doing metalwork, the more you'll modify your hammers and change them or buy different ones to suit what you're doing. But there's nothing wrong with these if you're just getting started. Just remember, it's for sheet metal. It's tapping. It's gentle. It's massage. You're not going to beat the living hell out of it. And that's where I see most of the problems in most people's body work is they just overwork the metal. They stretch the hell out of it. And in the end, when you do that, you end up with a piece of metal that, see, this doesn't have any big hammer marks or big dents in it. It's fairly flat. Now you can go ahead and do your skin coat of metal or of plastic over the top of that, and you got a good finish. It's just a matter of learning a little bit about how the metal moves, spending a little bit of time perfecting your craft, and moving metal. I hope that helps you guys. Later on, maybe we'll get into some metal shaping. Here's a little dish we made using a shrinking stump. If you guys are interested in any of this stuff, put a little comment down below. You'd like to see more. I can teach you guys how to make some shrinking stumps. A lot of guys will make them out of wood. I have found that the bottom of a acetylene tank or some type of gas tank works great. It has a nice shape to it. You can lay that in there and you can work your metal. But we can talk a little bit about shrinking and stretching metal as well as manipulating it to make different things. So if you're interested in that and you want to see more about that later on or another video, give me a little comment down below so I know. Otherwise, I hope this helped you, enlighten you a little bit. If you have any questions, put them down there in the comments. We'll take care of you. So you guys have a good week. We'll see you Friday.